areas. Is that a luxury, or is that our secret weapon against climate change and the effects of climate change? And if yes, how do we do it? This is what we will talk about this afternoon, and I'm delighted to have you all there. Our first speaker will be Ms. Tatjana Molcean, the Executive Secretary of the Economic Commission for Europe of the United Nations, and she will share with us our vision, how we see matters unfold, and the importance we attach to trees in cities. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon to everyone. I hope everyone got their coffee, has a lot of energy, and as we are going to compete with the neighbors just next to us, I'm really counting on your very engaged and committed listening, at least more this one. So please stay with us and try to follow whatever the discussions will be. First, it is a great pleasure to welcome you at this event. You know, cities and drylands is actually not as a new concept. It's as old as civilization. The first complex urban centers emerged in the dryland of Mesopotamia thanks to the waters of the Tigris and Euphrates. And these cities and civilizations thrived. But nowadays, unfortunately, cities in drylands are among the hardest hit by climate change. They are disproportionately exposed to increasingly severe extreme heat, droughts, and flash floods. These events leave death, destruction in their wake. They also exacerbate the pressure exercised by urbanization and economic growth on water and land resources. So with urbanization, more and more cities are facing drought and desertification. We actually have near 2 billion people globally live in dry cities today. So 2 billion people, that's a huge figure. And another important aspect is that often the most vulnerable populations are the most severely impacted. But somehow today it's not about the problems, it's also about the opportunities. And we have a very simple, actually, and proven nature-based solution to this and many other challenges facing the dry cities: urban trees and nature, which can help us adapt to our future climate while also reducing emissions and delivering the SDGs. All that said, planting and caring for trees in dry cities is not easy. It's particularly challenging. The first thing is, of course, the limited access to water resources. But we do not need actually water-intensive green urban oases to deliver the many benefits of the trees in dry cities. If we carefully select tree species that are well adapted to drylands, those can thrive. And we can really deliver benefits to the citizens. The question is, are trees in dry cities a luxury? We at UNICE and globally believe that the answer is no. They are not a luxury, they are more necessary for a more sustainable and resilient urban environment in the face of climate change. Trees in dry cities can lower temperature up to 8 degrees. This reduces the urban heat island effect. Also, trees in dry cities increase flood resilience, improve air quality, and provide habitats for biodiversity. And also, trees in dry cities can help to reverse desertification and soil erosion. They can also support local businesses by providing shade for tourists and residents. And finally, their proven benefit for physical and mental health can improve lives while unlocking huge savings in the public health expenditure. So, as you can see, trees in dry cities can really deliver local, national, and global goals, and they are also a good investment. This is why at UNICE we have launched 3 years, in 2019 actually, the Trees in Cities Challenge, through which over 80 cities have pledged to plant more than 13 million trees. But this is only the start of a journey. There is much more to deliver on this. By planting the right trees, right places, and for the right reasons. And it's also not about only planting, but also maintaining these trees and how do they survive in time. I think this is the major challenge to us. How do we ensure continuity and it's sustainable? So what we need to do now is really to act on the national scale. So we start local, but we need national scale. And we really need to support local governments with adequate technology, funding as well, both for the initial stages, but also for the maintenance stages. National governments can play a key role in this process by supporting, through different fiscal incentives, the local governments. The international community and what we are doing here at COP29, and I hope at the future events, is exactly to find the right balance with the financing instruments. This is why our UNECE Tree Policy Action Lab supports efforts to strengthen and align policy across different level of the governments. So we do work together already, government, local government, international organization, partners from the institutional, from the financial sector. We need just to scale up this process, and this is why I'm really honored to launch the Trees in Dry Cities Coalition together with our partner, the World Green Economy Organization, and I'm particularly grateful to His Excellency Saeed Mohammed Al Tayer for this shared commitment and action. So I invite all of those present, but not only, to join this coalition and support this challenge, both the Trees in Cities challenge, but also to engage with the Tree Policy and Action Lab. So let's act together, and I invite those distinguished panelists that we'll have later today to share with us their thoughts, their best practices, but also their challenges, and in this way we know how to support them. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Executive Secretary. May I call a representative of the World Green Economy Organization to the podium? Mr. Atayer unfortunately had to leave, but his statement, which is very dear to his heart, will be delivered by Mohammed. Thank you.
Sorry for the inconvenience, but His Excellency, due to some commitment, he had to leave for some high-level commitment. So I will deliver his speech, his words, on behalf of him. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed delegates, distinguished guests, and advocates for sustainable urban development, Assalamu alaikum. As we gather here for this momentous event at the 28th Conference of the Parties of the United Nations Convention on Climate Change, COP28, hosted by the United Arab Emirates, signaling the nation's commitment to global collaboration. I'm honored to address you today on behalf of the World Green Economy Organization. It is also gives me immense pride as I address this august audience on the platform of the United Nations Economic Commission of Europe, engagement on trees in dry cities, luxury or fundamental climate and SDG solutions. As we are called upon recognize and celebrate the indefeasible role of urban trees in addressing climate adaptation and mitigation, achieving the Sustainable Development Goal, and advancing local, national, and global objectives in dry cities. Today, we have gathered to shine a spotlight on a critical and often overlooked aspect of sustainable urban development: the profound impact of urban trees and forests in dry cities. As we embark on this important journey, along with the UNECE, I'm delighted to extend a warm welcome to each and every one of you. The significance of this gathering cannot be overstated, for its forum that is not only acknowledges the pivotal contribution of urban trees, but also underscores the critical need for peer exchange, technical cooperation, and city pilot that in form of national policies dialogues. Though this event, we have the opportunity to be a vehicle for UNECE's summons to cities, countries, and international organizations to share lessons and recommendations, thereby paving the way to drive the scale and sustainable management for urban cities and forests as a climate and SDG solution for dry cities. The challenge faced by dry cities are immense, and they demand innovative and holistic approaches. Urban trees, often underappreciated and yet essential, hold tremendous potential to mitigate the impact of climate change, enhance air quality, reduce urban heat islands effects, conserves water, and provide numerous social and economic benefits. We must harness this potential and integrate it into our strategy's sustainable urban development. Dear friends, it is obvious that this commitment to sustainability and recognition of the critical role of urban trees in dry cities has led the UNECE to launch the Trees in Dry Cities Coalition. This coalition stands as a testament of UNECE resolves to drive and systematically align efforts both nationally and internationally to champion the sustainable management of urban trees. And we at the WGEO are happy to collaborate and to be the vehicle to lead the world to this critical initiative, which comes at the most crucial time. The Trees in Dry Cities Coalition is founded on the firm belief that by collaborating and harnessing our collective expertise, we can effect meaningful and lasting change. The coalition objectives are clear and pure, and I'm out of my glasses, so sometimes it's like this. It aims to advocate for the prioritization of urban trees management in the policies and plans of dry cities, encourage investment in urban trees infrastructure, develop guidance and best practices for sustainable urban trees management, and facilitate knowledge sharing and capacity building among cities and stakeholders. WGEO's role in this coalition is one of facilitation, collaboration, and advocacy. We are committed to provide the necessary support and resources to enable cities to impart sustainable urban trees management as a core component of their development agenda. We will work tirelessly to promote the exchange of knowledge and best practices to mobilize funding and investment, and to advocate the policy change that prioritize the conservation and expansion of urban covers. Ladies and gentlemen, as we embark on this journey alongside UNECE, let us remind ourselves of the profound impact that urban trees can have on our cities and our planet. Let us envision cities where green space flourish, where trees-lined streets offer shade and beauty, and where urban ecosystems are healthy and vibrant. Let us remember that the sustainable management of urban trees is not just a climate solution or an NDG target, but fundamental expansion of our commitment to create available, inclusive, and resilient cities. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here to discuss this very important topic and thank you for the UNECE team to join organize this event with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. It is my pleasure now to welcome Italy's Special Climate Envoy. It's a great honor that you made it here. I know how busy your day is, and I thank you very much for passing by. Thank you.
So, good afternoon, and thanks for the invitation. It's a pleasure to me to stay here. So, as you know, the world is rapidly urbanizing. We have a particular word used in the US, gentrification. You increase the amount of urban city. And we have a lot of challenges with climate change. One of these challenges is connected with the increase of big city. You say in your panel, are trees in dry city a luxury or a fundamental solution to addressing climate change and advancing the sustainable development goals? From my opinion, both is important. From one side, nature is a paradigm of beauty. So have the possibility to increase the amount of green part in our city is something that is beautiful and help us to stay there. Then it is good also for the SDG program, because you know, tree plays a crucial role in mitigation, for example, because it was able to, with the photosynthesis, to capture the CO2. We are not able to do this as good as nature made. I am a researcher, so I know very well that we are trying to do the same, but we are not so smart as nature is. Then we have another important element. It is possible, using tree, to reduce the hotspot of our city. So as you see, this aspect is extremely important and can help us not only from a practical point of view, because it is aligned with mitigation, adaptation, and a lot of words that I am listening here from the first day, but moreover because help us to stay in touch with the nature and in a good situation, a good shape inside our city. And remember this aspect, climate change is a big issue, probably is the biggest issue of our period. But the problem is not for the nature alone, it's for us. If we destroyed, and if we are destroying our house, it's a problem for, first of all, for us, not for the house. I know that we need to preserve the nature because it's our home more than an house. But it can help us to stay in a good situation, in feeling good inside our city. So luxury, but it's not a luxury. It's something that can help us in a very strong way. Sorry that I have to come. My agenda is busy. I appreciate very much this initiative, and I want to put this attention on the Italian government, because also in Italy this is a real huge problem. Thanks again, and good luck for this meeting. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Covaro. It was a pleasure having you with us and highlighting very well that luxury is sometimes necessary. And unfortunately here in this case, we really need this luxury. We really need to make this effort that trees survive and are not only planted, but that they actually stay with us. I would like to call to the fore one of the countries that is affected by very dry weather, by weather changes and by climate change. That is Uzbekistan. I would like to call His Excellency Mr. Kudatov, the first Deputy Minister of Ecology, Environmental Protection and Climate Change. Thank you.
Assalomu alaykum. Hurmatli hamkasblar, hurmatli Tatyana Molchin xonim, xayrli kun xonimlar va janoblar.
Yes. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished delegates, and Honorable Executive Secretary Tatyana Molchan. It's a great pleasure seeing you.
Avvalambor ushbu tadbirga taklif qilinganimiz uchun minnatdorchilik bildiramiz.
First of all, I extend appreciation for inviting me on this very important side event.
Bugungi kunda O'zbekistonda shaharlarda yashillik darajasini oshirish bo'yicha bir qancha ishlar amalga oshirilyapti. Jumladan prezidentimiz tomonidan ilgari surilgan Yashil makon umummilliy loyihasi jadal amalga oshirib borilmoqda.
The number of environmental initiatives and actions taking place in Uzbekistan, particularly Yashil Makon Green Environment Initiative that's been initiated by the head of the state, the President of the Republic of Uzbekistan.
Yashil makon umumiy milliy loyihasining asosiy maqsadi bu shaharlarda ko'p aholi yashaydigan hududlarda yashillik darajasini oshirishdan iborat bo'lib, 5 yillik reja qilingan, strategiya belgilangan. Shu 5 yilda 1 milliarddan ortiq miqdorda daraxt ekishni nazarda tutilgan.
One of the key goals of the targets of this Yashil Makon Green Initiative is to increase the area of the green areas in the country, countrywide, and to plant for the next 5 years 1 billion trees, annually 200 million trees annually.
Hozirgi kunda bugungi kunga kelib, mana kuz fasliga kelib, qariyb 500 milliondan ortiq daraxtlar ekilishi ta'minlandi.
Started in 2021, this initiative has already, in framework of this initiative, we have successfully planted over 500 million trees across the country.
Ushbu tadbir boshlanishiga 2 yil bo'lgan bo'lsa-da, mana o'zini bir ijobiy natijalarini ko'rsatdi. Shu sababli 2024-yildan boshlab har yili 50 million dollardan ortiq bo'lgan miqdorda budjetdan mana shu sug'orish tizimlarini tashkil etish bo'yicha pullar ajratiladi.
It has shown its practicability and the need to continue these efforts. And starting from 2024, the country is committed to mobilize over the $50 million for these activities, and particularly was focused on the irrigation, because with trees being planted and now they need to be irrigated.
Ko'pchilikda xabari bo'lsa kerak deb o'ylayman. Mana O'zbekistonda asosiy qismi bu cho'llardan tashkil topgan bo'lib, yashillik darajasi past. Shu yashil makon loyihasini amalga oshirish orqali biz O'zbekistonda 2030-yilga qadar yashillik darajasini 30% ga yetkazish, o'rmon bilan qoplangan hududlarni esa 15% ga yetkazilishi o'zimizga asosiy maqsad qilib olganmiz.
Most of you may know that Uzbekistan lays in the semi-arid climatic conditions in the middle of Central Asia, and majority is semi-desert areas. And we have very much committed to carry this initiative, where we aim by the end of 2030, we aim to increase the green zones in the cities by 30% and the areas of the forest land across the country by 15%.
O'zbekistonda bundan tashqari 2050-yilgacha bo'lgan bugungi kunda strategiya ishlab chiqarilyapti. Ya'ni O'zbekistonda yashillik darajasini oshirish bo'yicha bu 2050-yilga kelib shu o'rmon bilan qoplangan hududlarimizni kamida 30% ga yetkazilish o'zimizga biz bir qat'iy maqsad qilib olganmiz.
In addition, government has adopted strategy until 2050, where it's part of the main goal is to reach to increase the area of the green areas in the cities across the country, and we aim and committed to reach 30% of the forest and green areas across the country.
Bu uchun biz hozirgi kunda qonun bilan talab qo'ydikki, mana hozir hamma shaharlarda qurilishlar bo'lyapti, ko'p qavatli binolar, inshootlar ko'tarilyapti. Afsuski, shu quruvchilar tomonidan shu yashillik darajasini o'ylamasdan oz miqdorda kamroq joylarni qilish amaliyoti ushlab kelmoqda. Shu sababli biz qonun bilan taqiqlab qo'ydikku, kamida 30% qurilgan inshootning 30%ni atrofini yashillik bilan, daraxtlar bilan qoplanishini shart qilib qo'ydik.
And in this regards, we see the great necessity to strengthen our legal frameworks. And as Uzbekistan is one of these dynamically developing countries, and a lot of cases the construction, new construction sites taking place, and we are now instructing these new projects to have in their territory 30% to be allocated for the green zone in every construction site.
Xuddi shunday shaharlarning atrofini yashil qalqonlar, yashil belbog'lar bilan bog'lash masalasi ham bugungi kunda o'rtada qo'yilib, bu bo'yicha ham ishlar amalga oshirilyapti. Ya'ni bizda o'sha Afg'oniston bilan chegara hududlarimizdan doimiy afg'on shamollarini kelishi natijasida bu ekologiyamizga juda katta zarar bo'lyapti. Shu sababli shaharlarda yashil qalqonlarni qilish belgilangan.
Another area we focus is to establish green belts around the main the cities. And as you may know, that we have a so-called term Afghan wind, which comes from the southern part of Uzbekistan up to the north. So, to prevent this wind and the storms, we aim to plant this green belts across in the southern parts of the country to prevent this erosion and the sandstorms.
Bundan tashqari mana bahor oyidan boshlab, bahor mavsumidan boshlab O'zbekistondagi yirik bo'lgan sanoat korxonalari yuqori darajada o'sha vibros atmosferaga vibros tashlaydigan korxonalarning atrofida qonunchilik bilan belgilab qo'yildiki, ular har bir o'sha sanoat korxonasi o'zini yashil belbog'ini bilan o'rab olinishi kerak.
And another area we're focusing is we closely work with the enterprise and big manufacturers, which are so-called biggest polluters, and we planning to work with them to so they also establish green belts, green zones in their facilities and around the factories.
Bundan tashqari biz mana shu daraxtlar va qurg'oqchilik shaharlar koalitsiyasiga doirasida ishlashi doim qo'llab-quvvatlaymiz va bu loyiha doirasida tegishli ishlarni amalga oshirishga tayyormiz.
We welcome this coalition of the trees and the dried cities, and we stand by to further cooperate with UNESC and the relevant partners in this regard.
Bundan tashqari mana hozirgi kunda aholini xalqi daraxt ekologiyaga bo'lgan, tabiatga bo'lgan munosabatini o'zgarish uchun ta'limga alohida, ilmga alohida e'tibor qaratilgan. Bu bo'yicha yashil universitet tashkil etildi, bir nechta kollej va texnikumlar tashkil etilyapti. Men o'ylayman, bu ham o'zini samarasini berib, shu O'zbekistonda keyingi 10 yilda yashillik darajasini oshirishga hissa qo'shadi.
And all these works and commitments also accompanied by this awareness raising and education, because all this work has to start with education, and with that we have established the Green University of Central Asia and for the environment studies and climate change. In addition, a number of the new university technical colleges been established to build this new generation of the environmentalists and the leaders in this field.
E'tiborlaringiz uchun rahmat, salomat bo'linglar.
I appreciate for your attention and thank you.
Thank you very much. We heard a bit more, it's going a bit wider. We heard about countrywide action, sometimes necessary to get cities to do what needs to be done, but also regulations and legal frameworks helping the private sector to do the extra mile to keep some spaces green and to keep spaces green for trees. Something else we heard was science, and I would like, and I know that there's also a time conflict, I would like to call the Director General of the International Center for Agricultural Research in the Dry Areas and the Regional Director Central and West Asia and North Africa to the podium, because science and research seem to be playing a very, very big role when it comes to greening and planting trees in dry areas. Thank you.
Thank you very much, first of all, for the invitation to be with this very important event. We certainly align ourselves fully with this effort and commit to contribute in any way and the best way we can. I think you've raised a very important point, because the trees has enormous benefits to offer, both within the context of cities, but also rural areas, and more importantly, actually in deserts. So if you look at the trees and how they function, they have enormous benefits in affecting the microclimate. And simply, known, the cities are called like heat islands, where basically they are usually 3 or 4 degrees higher than the surrounding rural areas. So if you're able to actually plant trees, then you're able to effectively influence the microclimate within the context of cities, and you can look at how much this would impact in terms of reducing the energy cost for cooling, and the general sense of comfort. There is a money tag to be put on that. Just people walking in the streets and living in day-to-day business is quite important and significant. Now, if I take this a little bit further and look more broadly, there has been mixed experiences with trees across the globe. Many countries, without going in specific names, have selected the wrong species or the wrong type of trees and have gone on massive scale of planting, and only to find out that this eventually became an economic loss. And those bad traumas that stay in the minds of people makes it so difficult for planners and for policymakers and governors and local authorities to bring back these concepts. And if they do, they may not also necessarily have the right choices. So I think here the role of specialized organization can be quite instrumental in helping with the selection of the type of trees, the way it's planted, the way it's maintained. And of course, within the context of climate change, you need low maintenance, you also need low water consumptions. So if I take this one step further and go to deserts, the CGIAR and ICARDA in particular have been promoting the concept of what we call integrated desert farming. And what this means is that you have the trees and the microclimate it brings. The tall trees, if you look at date palm, for example, then you have the shorter trees, and then you have the shrubs, and then you can have crops on the ground. So you have 3 or 4 layers, and at every layer you could actually make a change and reduce temperatures further and make possible to grow certain crops that would have otherwise not been possible, simply by affecting the microclimate. And this is becoming a very important science. Noteworthy here, and I don't know if we have someone from Morocco, they would probably be a better place to speak about this than myself. Morocco is one of the leading countries where trees that have really very low water consumption and very high degree of resilience, like argan, where you extract the argan oil for cosmetics, the karoop. These are trees that can survive 100, 120 millimeters, 150 millimeters. So why don't we learn from these countries? Why don't we bring those experience, even if there's sufficient rainfall elsewhere? The fact that you're able to extract some of those genes and then use them to improve the future other types of species. When you look at some of the big initiatives in the region, the KSA with I don't know how many billion trees, and in the UAE, it's becoming a very important commitment, especially across the region and in North Africa. So in short, we strongly believe that trees have been largely underexploited for years. The fact that we're bringing focus on their potential contribution to cities, I would probably emphasize a couple of points, is that if you're going to be planting trees and if you're going to be taking care of them, it's not such a bad idea to look at productive trees, right? So there is always a good economic value. It gives people more reason to care about those trees. And then it also creates opportunities for livelihood. And let's look at the cities, not only the very large cities like Dubai, look at the smaller and even smaller in the rural areas and less developed cities that could really make good advantage of those. So happy to answer any questions during the course of the conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and I know my colleagues know what I'm going to say now because it's very dear to my heart, the story of the productive trees. If you can combine food and the benefits of a tree in a city, increase food, even include in increase food security, this is a fantastic collateral benefit, and I thank you for mentioning it. I also thank you for mentioning Morocco, because I would like to bring the Moroccan representative to the floor. It is Mr. Eskim, who is, no? No, no. Yes, we passed to Jordan, but I think one aspect you highlighted, which I liked very much, was the learning experience. We can really learn from each other, and I think this was the primary motivation behind saying, let's come together in a coalition, in something loose, let's exchange, and let's see what comes out of it. And that's also why UNECE, together with WGEO, launched this idea, launched this coalition, which is open still to be framed, which is open still to be shaped. And I hope many of you will be part of the shaping process and then also of the learning process. So let's go on to Jordan. I have the pleasure to welcome Mr. Jihad Al-Swayer, who speaks on behalf of the Minister of the Environment of Jordan. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. First, I would like to thank the UNECE and the World Green Economy Organization, WGEO, for this invitation and for discussing this important topic. Before I shed light on the topic of this discussion, I would like to point out that Jordan is one of the most water-scarce countries globally, and it's actually the second lowest country in the world in terms of per capita water consumption. At the same time, and in order to address environmental and climate risks in Jordan, and specifically in our cities, particularly against floods and landslides, we have been focusing on implementing pioneering projects in Jordan and innovative solutions that are actually aligned with our adaptation and mitigation goals and in line with our NDCs and our Green Growth National Action Plan, which we actually developed for the years 2021-2025. For example, this includes projects to improve the green infrastructure. We believe that green infrastructure is one of the nature-based solutions that we should actually follow in cities by planting trees on roadsides and developing parks and environmental gardens and maintaining and rehabilitating existing parks with the focus on involving local communities in creating, maintaining, and achieving sustainability for these green spaces. We have also implemented a number of pilot projects across the Kingdom of Jordan, including in Amman, Zarqa, Mafraq, Karak, and other cities. And this is, of course, in cooperation with various governmental and private and international agencies with the focus on civil society organizations. The other thing I would like to mention that a national technical committee was established in Jordan. It's related to afforestation committee. And the main objective of this committee is actually to identify suitable sites for additional afforestation activities and to ensure key dimensions are considered, like, for example, the soil type, the sustainability elements, and the most suitable native tree species based on studies and modeling of the sites. You know, Jordan is working on the economic modernization vision, which was actually launched by His Majesty the King. So one of the objectives related to greenery and to greening plants and to actually plant trees is that we have a big project of planting 10 million trees within the coming 10 years until 2030. And this will include rural, urban, and semi-urban areas. Of course, the main objective of this program is to confront the impacts of climate change, to combat desertification, to increase the greenery areas in Jordan, to reduce the natural risks, and to preserve our biodiversity. For example, in Karak, we have a project to which 27,000 dunums, and we are now planting trees, and part of it is rehabilitation program with the main aim of achieving the first million trees forest in Jordan. All these projects actually are in line and being implemented with the global standards and requirements in relation to nature-based solutions and the nature-based approaches. The other thing I would like to mention is the Climate Refugees Nexus initiative that was launched last year by His Majesty King Abdullah of Jordan. This is not a Jordanian initiative, it's a global initiative which actually focuses on countries that host high percentages of refugees, and at the same time they are impacted by the negative consequences of climate change. These countries should be given special attention from the international community when it comes to financial and technical support. So if we want to actually link this initiative to what we are talking about today, so it's important that we raise the resilience of these countries and to create green jobs and to help these countries achieve their NDCs. But of course, the support of the international community is important. As for in Jordan, we support all the initiatives and the efforts, such as the Trees in Dry Cities Coalition, which actually places nature-based solutions as the center of climate action at the local, the national, and the global scale. Such an initiative can serve as an umbrella for the exchange of best practices and can help to direct additional financial and technical support to scale up successful pilots and foster regional collaboration. Finally, this is imperative in order to sustain our collective natural capital for future generations and in line with sustainable development goals. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the government of Jordan and also for the support for the coalition. This is very well heard. And I think what we heard here is yet another aspect, and it's about resilience, this resilience building that actually creates jobs. We're actually entertaining a new kind of ecosystem that actually creates services, and these services require people, and we create jobs. So that, very importantly, something we hadn't heard before. The green infrastructure, very important. And with this, I think we have reached the end of our first panel, and I thank all the panelists very much for this, for coming, for joining us today. We will be in touch, so I hope you're prepared. And I would now like to call the panelists of the second panel maybe to take their seat in the armchairs on the podium. No, I'm sorry, we forgot one panelist. I'm so sorry. No, she's looking at me, and I'm so sorry. We forgot Brazil. We forgot a huge country with huge cities and with a lot of greenery. So please, Fabiola, I'm delighted to have you here. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. I pretty understand the mistake because you were expecting Mr. Adalberto Maluf. He's very different from me, so I'm representing Mr. Adalberto Maluf. He is the Vice Ministry of Urban, Environmental and Quality Secretariat in the Environmental Ministry. I am Fabiola Zerbini. I am the Forest Director on the same ministry. So we've been working very closely on this agenda, and he's now replacing the Minister Marina Silva. This is why I am here. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thanks for the opportunity also to share what we've been doing in Brazil in such a relevant and important agenda for all of us, and not only for the Brazilians, but also for the world, as we are talking here. Well, first, the urban urbanization is an agenda that we are looking in a very systemic way, very connected to the forest agenda, so the conservation agenda, the restoration or the native vegetation recovery agenda, and the afforestation, but also very connected with the climate agenda. So adaptation, resilience, and mitigation plans. All of this are being built in an interconnected way, and urban urbanization is one of the key strategies that connects all of these three pillars. I will bring here a brief context, where we are in the country, then a very recent program that was announced by Vice Minister Adalberto about the green resilient cities. It was announced here at COP28. And then I will talk about the program that I am leading, the Restoration Public and National Policy. Again, trying to interconnect everything with the key topic of the agenda. First, it's interesting to say, and now I put my glass. First, it's interesting to say now that the two legislations that say what means urban green areas, they are both from 2006 and 2012. And both of them brings the concept that the main purpose is recreation, improvement of urban environmental quality, protection of water resources, improvement of landscaping protection, assets and cultural manifestations, also recreational functions, and etc. Both of them, I can give you the numbers, is the Forest Code, one of them, one of the main legal framework that we have in the country, but neither has or have brought the urgency on the climate issues and the disasters that we are now facing. This is why we need to update also the legal framework, bringing the climate issues, bringing the disasters risk. And if you look to the country this year, we had unimaginable dry season in the north of the country, in the middle of the Amazon. And we had an unimaginable, very wet season in the south of the country. The climate change is being now a reality perceived by urban people. And we are more than 85% of the Brazilians. So 85% of the Brazilians lives in the cities. The cities, most of this lives in kind of informal settlements on the peripheric areas of the cities. The climate change, the main disasters affect more that people. So we are talking more than a climate, a hydric, or a kind of in a broader concept, like an environmental problem. This is a big social problem. And if you look to the cities, we have many projects being managed not only on a federal level, we have subnational, both on state and municipality levels, but less than 35% 50% of the municipalities in Brazil nowadays has resilience or adaptation plans or even a risk management plan. Different if you talk about the management of green areas. No, most of the municipalities that has their own plan, but doesn't mean that they are being implemented. So a public national policy that really move forward in a federative pact between the federal, the subnational, and the state level and a municipality level, combining strategic planning, spatial territorial intelligence, governance, and financial mechanisms is more than mandatory to really and as urgent as possible, because we are again dealing with an emergency, move forward to create a different situation, no, for the country and again from the country to the world. So the most recent program launched by the Brazilian government, the one that was launched here at COP28, it calls Resilient Green Cities Program. This has been developed by us, Environmental Ministry, but also the SEETS Ministry and the Industry and Commerce Ministry. And this is very important, again, because beyond the systemic approach among us inside the Environmental Ministry, the Brazilian government nowadays, we have more than 20 ministries in the country with an environmental department inside. And the combination and the alignment between all of this is one of the main, I think, strengths that we have and opportunities that we have to really change. And again, bringing the topic on the climate security connected with the forest agenda and with cities, no, like more green cities agenda, no, is in the center of all of this. The program will be launched by a decree after this and connected with the Green Climate Fund, the Amazon Fund, and other sources of resources. We really start to bring capacity to the municipalities to strengthen their own plans, and really by doing this, moving forward and connecting with the other program that I will bring to you, which is the PROVEG, the Restoration National Public Policy. Our goal is to restore 12 million of hectares, and it also means afforestation. Doesn't need to be only restoration or reforestation, could be also afforestation. At least 12 million hectares, because in fact, if you look to the Brazilian legislation nowadays, and if you look to the critical situation of many of our cities in terms of the risk, climate risk that they are exposed, the size, no, the amount of hectares needs to be pretty much bigger than this. And we are doing prioritization studies to understand which are the most important hectares to be restored. So it's not only about a hectares. 12 million is a lot, but you know, the 10,000 hectares in the right place can be better than 100,000 in the wrong place. If you have intelligence, if you know what you are really looking for, and we are making multi-criteria prioritization studies, very connected with key municipalities, key cities in the country to identify those areas that afforestation and reforestation are demanded to really guarantee the protection. Please, I'm telling on the restoration a lot because this is my agenda, but we do have a big agenda on conservation as well. So inside the cities, we have a huge percentage of protected areas. Connect those protected areas by really, again, bringing more trees to the cities is another. As well, the corridors around the rivers, the urban rivers as well. All of this will be combined by different instruments and finance mechanisms, but again, together from the federal to the municipality level, and from that systemic vision and that systemic approach that we are bringing inside the Environmental Ministry and inside the government. To finish my contribution here, The COP29, we still do not know where it will be, but the COP30, we know. It will be in Belém. Belém is one of the most urban, beautiful cities. We have the Amazon inside the city. So starting today, not only the announcement, you already know that, but the advertisement, if I can go like that or something. The Brazilians are very, very focused and build one of the most beautiful but also honest COP, Really, really bring it the challenge and the beauty of being in a city inside the Amazon, inside the forest. So just finishing here, inviting all of you to join us on this journey to COP30, for sure, having the COP29 in the middle of the way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fabiola. And with this, I'm calling now definitely the panelists of the second panel to the floor. It will be moderated by Mohamed. Thank you, from the World Green Economic Association. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, to be with us today. Our second panel will be Ms. Zina Scanlon, Chief of Communication, External Relations, Partnership, United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. Welcome. Mr. Ricardo Rio, the Mayor of Praga, Portugal. Pleasure. Ms. Christine Peterson, Director of International Trade Investment, Mayor's Office, City of Los Angeles. And Mr. Stephen O. Driscoll, Head of Environment, Climate and Social Policy, European Investment Bank. Honorable Pedro Roque, Parliamentary Assembly of the Mediterranean, PAM, Vice President and President of the PAM Third Standing Committee. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Should we have the mic? Okay. I'm going to use this one. Yeah, limited to mics. Sorry for that. So in our second panel, we are going to discuss how cities can effectively plan and mobilize resources and enhance climate resilience through urban initiatives. As usual, ladies first. Let us go with the ladies first, if you don't mind, gentlemen. So for Ms. Zina Scanlon, okay, how do the UNCCD and its 2018-2030 strategic framework supports trees in dry cities?
So good afternoon, and thank you very much for the invitation to the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification to participate in this important discussion and the launch of this important initiative. For those of you who don't know us yet, we're of course a sister convention to the Climate Convention. We take our roots from the historic Rio Earth Summit in 1992, so actually next year we will be marking our 30th anniversary, and dry areas is very much part of our DNA. What, from our point of view, and having heard many inspiring examples from around the world, we just had the pleasure last month of participating in an urban tree planting in the city of Samarkand, Uzbekistan. The Honorable Deputy Minister was with us earlier, and that was part of the drive that the country has, and this is where UNCCD had its pre-COP meeting. So for us, obviously, this is something that we have been taking on board already in the context of our work and in the context of our strategy. But more particularly, last year at the COP15 of UNCCD in Abidjan in Côte d'Ivoire, there was for the first time a decision that was taken by our 197 parties that actually specifically addressed the issue of urban-rural linkages in recognition of the fact that cities drive a lot of the land use change, a lot of land degradation. At the moment, around the world, we're losing 100 million hectares of healthy and productive lands every year that basically, you know, we will need to restore, recover, rehabilitate, and definitely cities have a big role to play in this. That's why we warmly welcome this initiative, and we will be happy to support it from our side in the efforts of the convention.
Thank you so much. But in terms of the challenges, from your point of view as a UNCCD, in terms of challenges, what is the biggest challenges that you are facing for the time being, and if there is any kind of a plan to overcome in terms of financial resources, plans and strategies? Would you please enlighten us in this context, please?
I think some of the main challenges have already been mentioned by the speakers ahead of us, and I think, you know, we talked about, you know, the need to plant the right trees in the right places. I think from our point of view, we would also like to continue the conversation and move from trees to hectares, and I think, you know, the Honorable Representative of Brazil was talking specifically about hectares. I think, you know, for us, obviously, the challenge is also how do we make sure that when we do look at the mosaic of landscapes, how do we plan, how do we implement that integrated land use planning in cities and elsewhere, and how do we connect exactly what we're seeing around the world, where most of the rural communities are the ones that are still 85% of the world's poor live in rural areas. They migrate to cities. Cities in turn obviously impact the loss of productive land around them. We've heard about urban expansion, etc. But also the issue of forced migration that is very much common, and this is definitely a challenge, I'm sure, for many of us here today. On the financing, just very briefly, yes, we know that the funding is always a challenge, but no matter which convention you're looking at. In terms of land, we know that the international funding sources are probably a fraction of those that are directed to other causes. That's why, of course, for us, it's very important to reinforce the investment case, because we know that every dollar invested in land restoration brings between $7 and $30 in return, and the investments in drought resilience, which again become much more topical for cities around the world, also have a high return of investment.
Yeah.
So prevention is definitely better than cure.
Whatever it is, direct or indirect. Now we go to Ms. Peterson. LA, one of the largest and biggest cities in the world. It's big, diverse, and we have read about many civic and private initiatives that support urban trees cover in LA. Would you please enlighten us on this context a little bit?
Sure, absolutely. So on behalf of Mayor Karen Bass, the Mayor of Los Angeles, and our Deputy Mayor of Energy and Sustainability, Nancy Sutley, it's a pleasure to be here with you today. Improving the tree canopy and access to green spaces is a priority for Mayor Bass because she's looking to make Los Angeles a more livable city. She's a former community organizer and a nurse, and so she very much appreciates the connection between green spaces and public health as well, so it's great to hear that connection being raised today. For context and a little bit of scene setting, 20% of land is designated as open space in the city of Los Angeles, and there's an estimated 6 million trees in the city. That may sound like quite a lot to you. And in 2023, the city's first chief forestry officer, we do have a chief forestry officer, completed a citywide tree inventory, which is available online. If you Google Los Angeles tree keeper, it'll pull up 792,213 trees that have been inventoried in the city of Los Angeles, as well as the co-benefits and quantifying those co-benefits in terms of property value, energy value, energy savings, and carbon that's been sequestered or avoided. The total is about $116 million in annual benefits. So Los Angeles has one of the largest urban forests in the nation, perhaps the world, over 1,000 different species planted. When you think of Los Angeles, you may think of palm trees, but palm trees are not native to Los Angeles, and in fact, they were planted in preparation for the 1932 Olympics over 40,000 Mexican fan palms were planted along the boulevards. And now we're preparing to host the 2028 Olympic and Paralympic Games. And this is a great opportunity to catalyze our investments in tree planting. We're looking to plant 90,000 trees by 2028 and to increase by 50% the tree canopy in underserved areas. And so specifically looking at areas that have more exposure to extreme heat, more vulnerable to those health outcomes, adverse health outcomes. And we do have support from our national government. We worked with NASA this year to utilize satellite imagery to evaluate the impact of tree coverage on urban heat mitigation. So they used an analysis of satellite images of tree canopy and surface temperature to come up with 3 conclusions, which are first, that the amount of vegetation affects the temperature of an area. Second, that tree planting initiatives have increased tree canopy cover in LA. And third, that the increased tree canopy along streets is an effective way to cool communities. So we've also gotten funding through the Inflation Reduction Act, $3 million, and a total of $13.5 million to plant. So far, we've planted over 15,000 trees with that grant funding. So we are working very closely with the state and national governments to meet our goals.
That's great, you know, what you mentioned related to the national government, but just like pop up in my mind right now, what about the private companies, the citizens, how they manage, or your plan to let them manage the largest urban forest that you have over there?
So we do work a lot with commercial and residential property owners to plant trees. Residents can request a tree to be planted in front of their residence or their business. We also offer some rebates from the LA Department of Water and Power for tree planting. Somebody also mentioned productive trees. We find that fruit-bearing trees are very popular for private residences. So those are all part of the overall program.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Now we are going to Mr. Ricardo Rio, Mayor of Praga. So, Praga posts successful example of greening measures, creating safe and sustainable environment. So, to what extent does the national government support your efforts?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. And first of all, thanks for the invitation, and a special greeting to all the members of the panel, to all the participants in this session. I was listening to the example of Los Angeles, and I was, in a sense, amazed how we are dealing with cities of such a big difference in terms of dimension, of geography, but so many similarities in terms of the initiatives that we develop and the policies that we have in the city. Braga is the third biggest city in Portugal. It has nearly 200,000 inhabitants, so it's much smaller than LA. But we also have a very diverse territory. We have a more dense urban zone in which most of the people live, and where we don't, because of the way the city grew, don't have many green spaces, and that's one of the major investments that we are doing now. It's greening the central zone, creating more leisure zones for the neighborhoods, for the people that can use the center for pedestrian areas. And also, we have a periphery in the suburbs of the city, which is surrounded by hills, where we have nearly a forest, which is obviously a big challenge also for our territory. And so our major investments have been not only to create these green zones at a smaller scale, but also to create some big green parks that can provide leisure, sports, and other opportunities for the families and for the citizens or the visitors of our city. We have nearly now 3 parks with approximately 60,000 square meters each of different areas of green spaces. And in that perspective, obviously the biggest challenge, as you were asking, was the engagement of the civil society, of the citizens and other institutions. We have in Braga a program which we call the Eco Schools, in which we try to bring students from the schools to be responsible for certain green areas in which they can either have their plantations or they have some other activities learning with their schools. We have also some projects with the business institutions in the city, like some reforestation areas which are financed and in, let's say, social responsibility activities developed by the companies. And then we have the connection with all the other institutions. And the biggest challenge you are asking me about the government, it's not in this central part of the city, because those are more local policies. It has to do with management of the periphery of the hills in which we have the forest. Why? Because actually most of those territories are privately owned. We don't own those lands.
Yeah, of course.
And in those areas, we have mostly trees and the forest that are economically profitable, connected with the wood industry, connected with the paper industry, which is also very important in Portugal, which means that probably they are very inflammable as well. And a couple of years ago, in 2017, I had a terrible night when I was in South Korea, and my city was surrounded by a huge fire because we had a heat wave in the middle of the month of October, which is autumn in Portugal.
Yes.
And so we were, with the wind and all the heat, all those trees were spreading the fire all around the city. And that's a huge challenge, because we don't have the instruments, the administrative tools, and the financial stimulus to make those owners have a different type of production, have a different type of trees, and more autochthonous in those areas of the city. And so that's what we have been trying to do in recent times, challenging the owners to have some sort of collaborative approach to safeguard their economic interests as well, but also creating conditions for the city to be more resilient and less exposed to this type of situations.
Thank you so much. That you almost was reading my mind, because the next part of the question was, due to the droughts and the heat waves that faced most recently most of the European countries, what type of a challenges, not only what type of a challenge, the support needed to overcome this, what is needed? There is a plan that you can share it with us?
Well, we have our climate adaptation plans. We have a very structured strategy in terms of sustainability, in terms of the Sustainable Development Goals as well. And in the urban area, as I mentioned, we have a lot of investments going on. I think in the other panel, somebody was mentioning the river courses, which go through the city, and that's something that we are investing to assure that they are naturalized, that they are welcoming the people to walk around and to make all sorts of activities in the surroundings of the rivers, but also in the more, let's say, central and historic center of the city. We attract a lot of tourists, we have a lot of economic activities in the center, and we need to have pleasant spaces. If we don't have trees, the heat in the summer will be too much, and we'll have the same examples as some other cities that we see worldwide. And so we are investing a lot to green the center of the city, and we are asking for the support, and we have been receiving a lot of investments from the European Union to finance these projects that go towards the climate adaptation. As for the other dimension, it's still lagging behind. It's something that we have been pushing Braga and all the other municipalities for the national government, because it's at the national government level where the decisions can be taken in this issue. And but we haven't made many progresses so far.
That's very good, but as far as I understand right now, you mentioned most of the territories are privately owned, so that does mean that we are here encouraging more and more of the private sector to be engaged with that, and some kind of a private finance to lessen the burden out of the national budget.
Yes, and it calls for some sort of public-private partnership, because obviously we recognize that private owners have to take advantage of the land that they own, but at the same time they have to assure some sort of commitment with the safeguard of the city and the benefit of the other. And one of the ways that, for instance, we tried to work in the city of Braga was using these green spaces and these trees as assets in terms of offset for the carbon emission that we have, and so that we could use the carbon emission market to value those trees
Yeah,
and those
of
green
course.
spaces, so that they didn't want to have more industrialized approach for the plantations that they have.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for the enlightenment. Going now to Mr. Stephen, Head of Environment, Climate and Social Policy, European Investment Bank. Okay, what is the EIB experience and lesson learned when promoting urban trees and greening?
Thank you very much for the question. Thank you for inviting us here this afternoon, particularly on Cities Day, where obviously trees and green spaces make such a difference. Just a very quick plug for the EIB first, if I may, in case you don't know. So we're the long-term financing arm of the European Union. We're self-sustaining, so we borrow off the capital markets using our AAA credit rating, and then we effectively pass on the pricing premium to our borrowers at very long tenors. We finance about somewhere in between 60 and 70 billion in projects a year. And last year, 58% of that was green, so that's climate action, environmental sustainability. The rest of it was Paris-aligned, and our mandate is to lend, blend and advise. Done. So just very proud to say that in recent years we have, we call ourselves the EU Climate Environment Bank now, and we've become one of the key players in financing biodiversity and nature-based solutions. We're implementing different financing models that bring together both public and private finance, and we've managed to do that through various de-risking and blended finance mechanisms. Greening cities has been one of our key focus areas, and nature-based solutions are obviously an integral part of that, including trees. Our scope is global, but let me just share with you some experience from Europe first. Over the last 3 to 4 years, we've been running what we call the Natural Capital Financing Facility with the Commission. And the purpose of that was really to explore how nature-based solutions can be financed and integrated into cities. That's given us some very clear conclusions, and what we've concluded from that is that nature-based solutions, it's difficult to actually see these as standalone projects that can be financed. It's actually much easier that they're parts of other bigger projects that a city may have included in its master plan or wider kind of city planning. Well, we heard about the challenges earlier, and they're difficult to see in that vein for 4 reasons from our point of view. First, because the size of the projects is just very small, usually. Secondly, they're normally non-revenue generating. Thirdly, there's issues around land availability and cost and the need for extensive stakeholder engagement, which can cause issues. And then given that nature-based solutions are primarily public sector driven, due to the public good nature of the investments, other projects such as the rehabilitation of streets and roads and squares tend to compete for the limited fiscal space that some of these cities have. But there have been some successes. In Athens, we did a very substantial urban upgrade project, and we took on a team of consultants to make sure that nature-based solutions were properly integrated into the planning, and that worked very well. And we kind of lined up with the teams in Athens that were looking at adaptation and urban resilience. We made sure that and that design study actually just showed us the kind of benefits that trees can bring to cities, and we all know those about absorbing excess water and so on. So we were very pleased with the outcome of that. And then also projects with low initial outlays but with quite significant maintenance costs. Those present a challenge too for traditional national investment financing. So we've navigated that to an extent by embedding nature-based solutions CapEx into framework loans, which pull together at a regional level lots of smaller projects, and we call those framework loans. And this ensures that funding does actually get down to the nature-based solutions that are part of that overall planning. So on a global scale, partnerships are really important. really very important. And we run with the World Bank the City Climate Finance Gap Fund, and that's enabled Santa Maria and Colombia recently to pioneer an urban forest management model with a national legal framework facilitating the identification of local financing revenues. And options for that include compensation fees from urban development projects, shifting the financial emphasis from investment expenditure to maintenance and care, and so on and so forth. So we are working on replicating these models to achieve the kind of scale and speed that we need. We really are anxious to get more nature-based solutions into the projects that we finance. We have an adaptation plan which is very ambitious, and nature-based solutions are a key part of that.
Thank you so much. But from the perspective of adaptation and resilience, that it's very obvious the paybacks or the revenues, or we can say the impacts, are very very valued to the cities and also to the urban people as well in urban areas. But from your perspective, from the investment perspective or the banking sector perspective, to what extent that you encourage cities to be engaged in such a projects? Okay, from the the payback period, the revenue, indirect and direct itself. So, and to how extent that the EIB that is well to go furthermore with the cities, whatever in Europe or in other places all over the globe, to finance such projects.
I mean, we make sure that the green aspects of projects are fully embedded right from the start, and providing advice to cities in working up the plans and making sure that those aspects are included is absolutely key. We have a number of technical assistance advisory facilities, such as JASPERS, for example, in the EU, which is a free of charge co-partnership advisory service between the EIB and the European Commission. And there we help the national authorities and the regions develop sustainable urban mobility plans, fully greening city proposals and so on. So, I mean, it's always a key point for the discussion right up front with the regions. We're also involved in mission adaptation as well with the Commission, which is looking to make sure that the European regions, the cities are properly adapted, and obviously nature-based solutions is a key part of that. And we're trying to put on some roadshows such that we can appeal to the regions to kind of build up their project portfolios so that we can look at aggregating them up into framework loans and provide our finance that way.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Now we are going to Honorable Pedro Roque, if I'm pronouncing the name.
No, it's correct.
Okay, thank you. So the question to you, Honorable Pedro, how can parliaments support trees in dry cities, and how can international parliamentary cooperation support that?
Thank you so much. Allow me first to thank UNECE and the World Green Economic Organization for inviting PAM, the Parliamentary Assembly of the Mediterranean, to this very important high-level event. Let me explain what is PAM, Parliamentary Assembly of the Mediterranean.
Of course, yeah.
It's an interparliamentary organization that gathers all the national parliaments around the Mediterranean basin. I mean, from Lisbon to Ankara, and from Ankara to Rabat, including representatives from the state of Palestine and Israel, by the way. So the issues being discussed in this panel are now at the core of the international climate agenda, especially if we consider that today 56% of the world population live in urban areas. It is nearly impossible to tackle the human dimension of climate change without rethinking our strategies for urban development. In this context, PAM has also supported innovative solutions such as the establishment of green roofs, vertical forests in cities like Milan, and other strategies to increase the energy efficiency of buildings and reduce their emissions. Climate change is particularly affecting the so-called global south, but in particular, the Mediterranean alone temperatures are increasing 20% faster than the world average. We just hear Mayor Ricardo Rio talking about the wildfires, it was on the past a feature of the summer in the Mediterranean, but now it extends from spring till autumn. So it's a huge problem, especially in the Mediterranean. So promoting urban forestry can substantially contribute to our mitigation and adaptation strategies, while a more sustainable urban management can help us to advance at least 15 of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Parliaments and members of parliament are a crucial role in keeping the executive power in check, or in designing and ensuring correct implementation of sustainable legislative measures, and in raising awareness of urban forestry and management. International parliamentary cooperation has also proven to be fundamental to further analyze, debate, and even approve multilateral environmental agreements. As PAM, we have been working on a joint project with the UNEP and its Mediterranean Secretariat to prepare a guide for parliamentarians in designing environmental policies by putting significant emphasis on the many aspects of urban development and the risks of uncontrolled urbanization processes. One of its most interesting aspects in the focus of the necessity of a broader ratification of international agreements, such as the Protocol to the Barcelona Convention on Integrated Coastal Management, which contains crucial provisions on sustainable urban management. In addition, we are convinced of the absolute added value of the cooperation between the international organizations, but also with the NGOs. As such, we have been regularly attending the FAO and the UN Forum of Forests, as well as the recent UNECE FAO meeting in San Marino on this issue, and we have been working with UNCCD colleagues. In our regions, we have recently reinforced our partnership with MedCities, a network of Mediterranean cities, with the aim of reinforcing the role of cities and the environmental decision-making process. On other occasions, PAM has been in contact with this Association of Architects of Mediterranean to better understand how parliamentarians can assist towards this global goal.
Thank you so much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for all your insightful. But before we wrap up, let us hear from you, a couple of words or your opinion about the trees collation from each one of your perspective, like a parliamentary perspective that you're creating the legislation and the route to be implemented. The implementation side, as His Excellency the Mayor, the activities and the implementation of the ground, as well as the UN, the ALA, and from the international organization perspective, and from the banking sector perspective as well, in terms of investment, about the trees collation that is led by the UNACE and WGEO for the time being. Let us start from the Honorable Pedro. Yes.
Yes, thank you so much. From our perspective, we know that the role of parliamentarians is very important at the national level, but also at the inter-parliamentary level. I mean, to establish some guidelines, because the spirits are similar, and the issues, the problems are the same, at least around the Mediterranean basin. So it's important to have this kind of guidelines to be the best practices in order to reproduce them at the different national levels, and also to force to cooperate with governments, and also to press the governments in order that this kind of measures, environmental measures, can be established. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen?
Well, from the EU Bank, we're actually lucky in some ways to have the EU regulatory framework to have to follow, because that's very largely driven by the you probably heard of the EU taxonomy, where if you're claiming that something is green, not only do you have to achieve certain thresholds to claim that, but you also have to demonstrate that your investment is doing no significant harm across another five environmental objectives, which includes nature and biodiversity. So we're lucky to have that in a way. And that's driving us because that's actually what those that buy the bonds that we issue, green bonds that we issue, are expecting of their investment. So we're beholden to our bondholders and we're beholden to our shareholders. So that's the way we look at it.
Thank you. Senor Ricardo?
Well, I would say that at local level, the first dimension is the strategic planning, so that we have the vision and we know how to reach it. And the second is the mobilization of the civil society and the citizens. One of the examples that I listened from LA that we are also replicating in the reality in Braga has to do with a sort of accountability of the work that we are doing, which is the digital platform on the trees. Because it's a way to show people not only how many trees we are planting, but their current situation and the way that they can some sort of adopt those trees in their neighborhoods. And because you would ask, everybody wants a greener city with more trees. That's not right, because people complain that trees remove places for parking lands, people complain about the leaves of the trees, people complain with the risks of losing light. And so that's our daily routine. We are always trying to convince people that we are working to improve their quality of life.
Los Angeles.
Yeah, I think the Trees and Dry Cities Coalition is a great way to bring together cities and subnational governments and national governments, but also the finance and parliamentarians. I mean, the city has legislative bodies as well that we have to work with very closely. You know, trees in Los Angeles, if you drive through the city, they may seem like a luxury because they are predominantly in wealthier areas, and the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA, did a study that showed that during times of drought, it's the poor areas of the city that get hotter and are less resilient. So trees are not a luxury for LA, despite how it may seem. It really is a life-saving infrastructure. So I think the coalition that's been launched is a great idea.
Thank you. From the perspective of the strategic framework, how important the Trees and Dry Cities Coalition that can provide some help to UNCCD a strategic framework on dry cities.
So let me just talk from the perspective of the convention, of the sister convention, if you allow. So I think, you know, to sum up what we've heard today, really to me the big point is about partnerships and coalitions. I mean, not one of us, UN entities, international organizations, can achieve what we're seeking to achieve on our own. I think what I heard today and what we'd like to carry forward is that we're really delighted to be already engaging with many of the partners from the Mediterranean Union of Parliamentarians who know us, with the European Investment Bank that is already actively participating in, for instance, in the International Drought Resilience Alliance that was launched last year at Climate COP. We really would like to see greater engagement from local governments, from cities in the processes. And let me leave you with the call to action that we really hope that both UNESC and the World Green Economy Organization will also be joining us at our next COP next year, at the end of the year. It's going to be taking place in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. Again, very dry place, I'm told, although I look forward to discovering it. And we really look forward to scaling up land restoration initiatives, drought resilience initiatives, and I think trees in dry cities will play a very unique and important role in achieving those objectives.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for your insightful and valuable participation and enlightening us with the implementation and the financial and the legislation aspects of your efforts. Thank you so much for being with us, and we would like to see you more and more. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, just one last word of closing. I think we have learned a lot today, a lot about partnerships, a lot about the specificities that cities are facing, be it water, be it funds, be it maintenance. One word or one sentence that really hit me very closely, and I think it really sums up what we have done today, is what Christine from LA was saying, trees being not a luxury but a lifesaver. Might I go as far as to say maybe even a planet saver. So thank you very much for coming here today and participating in this event. All the best. Goodbye.